how is Pope Francis on this? Is he open to your research and your insights?
Well, Pope Francis has been very close to us in a number of ways. He visited us the first summer he was elected Pope. He came to the observatory. I joke that he came to my lab wearing a white lab coat. But you know he's got a background in chemistry, so he knows the science firsthand. He's tremendously supportive of us just as an intellectual apostolate, but he also supports our summer schools. He gives our students private audiences. He gave our entire observatory a private audience without an agenda, just to sit and talk about the work we do and our lives as Jesuits. On top of all of that, he wrote Laudato Si', which is one of the most brilliant encyclicals that I've ever read, because it combines the technological challenge of the ecological crisis with the human challenge of human sinfulness, and reminds us that that's at the root of climate change, and that's never going to be solved just with technology. In a sense, it gives us hope because we know how to deal with human sinfulness, even as it recognizes that it's never going to go away. That combination of science, technology, and humanity together is a vision that most people, most of the time, forget, especially us scientists.
Elsewhere you say, let science challenge theology. What do you mean by that?
It's very easy to become complacent in the way we think about things. And the joy of science is that you keep discovering new data which challenge the way you thought you understood things. Theology has to be prepared to be challenged because that's when it becomes alive. That's when it gets questions that make it look at things that it knows are true, but look at them in a new way. Science is one way that this can be done. It would be a very rich kind of challenge. And the science doesn't necessarily have to be true, it just has to be challenging. Because what the truth is the reflection you get about God having been challenged.
You also said in your address, anybody who wants to be a scientist should study poetry. That's interesting.
I say that for a practical reason and a deeper reason. Science ultimately is a human act. I mean, astronomy is not about stars and planets, it's about what human beings have thought about stars and planets. It's this conversation we have. And because we're talking about things bigger than what human words can contain, we ultimately have to use poetry. Even scientific equations are a form of poetry. The path of a falling rock is like the solution to this equation. More than that, poetry stretches your imagination, which is allowing you to then see the universe in a way that you had never seen before. In a practical sense, poetry trains you to look for what's unusual, for what's standing out, for what made you stop and think. The hardest part of science isn't necessarily solving the problem, but recognizing the existence of the problem, identifying the problem, and that only comes when you're suddenly aware of something that didn't fit your preconceptions, just as the choice of an unusual word in a poem draws attention to itself and makes you say, all right, the poet is trying to really get my attention here.